Welcome to the My Tribe podcast, Miss Jeannie Gardner. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, good morning, Mr. McEnaney. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I had two sessions and two wonderful clients, and now I'm sitting here in front of you on a Tuesday morning enjoying our presence. Because that's just the presence.
Yep, there you go. There
How
it is. Here we are.
how are you doing?
How am I doing? It's very interesting because you and I were talking about, doing this, and I was asking you, well, what in God's name are we going to talk about? Although I realize every time we talk to each other, we spend hours on the phone. So I
Mhm.
we clearly can do that. Um, but yesterday I went to a funeral for a 91-year-old lady. A friend
Mm.
of mine's mom down in South Jersey. And it really made me think a lot during the day because when I was younger, I remember going to like a great aunt's funeral, and she was like 90, I think. I don't know. She seemed like she was 150, but she was like 90. But there was nobody there at the funeral who really knew her because she was 90. And
Mm.
so, we were there, but we were like the great nieces and nephews. And, so it was just a different dynamic at the funeral. I walked into this 91-year-old lady's funeral wake on Sunday and then her funeral yesterday, and it was freaking packed.
Wow.
It was packed. But I mean, she did have 8 children. So, of course, they have, 9,000 friends, but they're all my age. But all these people were there talking about all the wonderful things she did in her life for others, not
Mm.
for herself, for others. And even the priest, for anybody who's watching this, it was a Catholic funeral. And they're an hour tops, right?
Mhm.
Hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I could see the non-Catholics having a heart attack
An hour
saying,
and 40 in the church?
in the
My
church,
goodness. Wow.
this priest got up and said, did the mass. But he said she has lived in that parish for 5 years. And every Saturday or Sunday morning, she was the last person at the sitting at the back row. And she waited for him every single time. And she gave him a kiss and a hug every time, every mass. And how he talked to her and how he knew all about her life. And
Mm.
she had 8 children, and she was a psychiatric nurse, and all the peoples whose lives she touched
Wow.
in that 91 years. And it was the most amazing time to realize that even he talked about her being, of the greatest generation and all the things that we're not, but how she devoted her life to just being there for others.
Mm.
It was very cool. And so was reflected on her last event on this life. There was he said no one should be sad, everyone should be celebrating. It's sad that we'll miss her a little bit, that we won't get to hear her snarky comments anymore. Um, have her tell us exactly what she thought. But at 91 years old, she was still banging it. She was still out there having a great time. And I thought, that's a life well lived,
Yeah,
right?
most certainly. I
And
mean,
he kept saying at the end during the sermon, think about it. Nobody knows if you're going to live 91 years or 40 years or 30 years, but can you say you had a life well lived if it was over right now?
mm, that's an amazing question.
It's an amazing question. Can you say you had a life well lived? I think I can. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Why? Why? What are the parameters that check those boxes for you?
What are the proudest that, well, it's my family, it's my faith, and it's being happy. You and I talk about this a lot.
Hmm.
um, how it's so important to get up every day and say, I'm going to be happy today.
Mm.
I'm going to be happy. There's a lot of negativity in this world, there's a lot of negative people in this world. And I kind of just have to laugh at them now because, sucks to be you.
Yeah, it's just so miserable. What is it
Yeah,
with all this negativity?
right. Life is not that bad. I mean, I think about my life. I've had a great life, as you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I worked really hard. I ran two businesses at the same time, one a full-time law practice. the other one, the business. I think, thank God I don't have to do that anymore. And I'm so happy I don't have to do that anymore. But it's fine that I did it when I did it,
Mm,
because life is a series of times, and every time has a different purpose. And you take what you get from that different purpose and you move on. So I was a crazy person. I was a lunatic. Your mom used to say, well, I don't know. All she just says is, you just got to do it. You just got to do it. And I think that's true. You just got to do it. Because you didn't have a choice. If you were a parent and you had kids
mm.
and you had a job, you had to get up every day and run like a lunatic. Do I want to do that anymore? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I love going to the beach now and getting, I go every morning for Christmas. I bought my sister, who lives in Australia, a digital frame so that I could send her pictures,
Mhm.
so that it was a way of us staying connected without necessarily having to talk every day.
Okay.
So, because that's crazy, because my evening is her morning, and so
Ah,
we don't connect all the time.
that's a lot.
So
Yes.
I started taking my camera. I take my phone with me with the dog to the beach. And every morning when I get to the beach, I take a picture of the sun coming up, because that's when I'm at the beach, 6 o'clock. It's a little harder today because now that the weather's changed, I have to start getting up earlier.
Mm,
But I take a picture and just send her the picture. And I said, this way, when you come home from work that night, your digital camera has a new picture and it says new picture. And there's the sunrise on Belmar Beach
wow.
every day. And so it's a great way for us to connect without having to do anything other than I snap a picture and send it to her. Thank God for the digital age.
Mhm.
But I also now sit down every once in a while and just look at all the pictures, because I've got pictures from basically December 25th, every single morning.
Every morning.
Every morning. Every morning. I mean, it's very rare that I miss the beach. Very rare. And
Mm.
if I miss the beach, there's a picture of us at the lake with the rain pouring down on us or something like that. Um, but to see that same spot every morning and see how different it is every single day
Mm,
has to tell you something. Has to tell you something. It has to, I believe it resonates with me that every single day I'm in the same space doing the exact same thing, but it's a different day. It's a
mm,
different day. And you got to look at, some of those days are gloomy. Some
mm.
of those days, the ocean is quiet and it's lapping up on the shore like it's a lake. Other days, there's a million surfers out there at 6 in the morning because there are these gigantic waves, which nobody expects on the Jersey coast, but Belmont is a pretty hot place for surfing. You know that.
Yeah, surf town there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big time. So you look at that. Some days there's no sun. Some days the moon is still there, and which means it's always there. You just don't see it on certain mornings. Some mornings it's vibrant, it's pastel. Isn't
Mm.
that a perfect example of what life should be like?
And that connection to nature has
Mhm.
shown you that.
Yep, yep. Because you just do it, and if you don't, if I didn't take that picture every day, would I make that connection? I don't know. I don't know.
Wow. It reminds me of like more of like a Native American people who lived off the land, and obviously we don't know if they're
It's
happy
gonna
or
have a
not.
phone.
Yeah, yeah, but it's more of the resignation to nature that, the sun's gonna come out tomorrow, whether it's ugly today or whatever it
Right,
is,
whatever it is.
it's gonna be a new day tomorrow. And it's
And
gonna
it makes you grateful for what's there, and
mm,
really appreciate those beautiful days. And then I can come back home and start my day
mm,
and run like a lunatic. So, today's a crazy day. So I'm doing this with you.
mhm.
Um, and then I finish with you. Then I have to take the dog to the vet where he's gonna howl and cry. And then I have to leave him there because they have to knock him out. They have to do x-rays and because he ate crap at the beach and now he has pneumonia
Wow.
and his lungs from eating crap at the beach. But then I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna go spend the rest of my day doing 3 different nonprofit, volunteer positions that I have. So the whole day is full. I won't get home till 6 o'clock tonight,
Mm.
but, but it'll be inspiring. Every part of it will be inspiring.
And I want to get into that. But before we dove right in, got real deep, real
I'm
quick.
sorry. Yeah, we
No,
do this all
no,
the
no, no.
time.
This is amazing. This is great. We dive right in, get right to business. And I couldn't be more grateful for it. But I want to give my millions of followers
Okay.
some background information. Who are you? How do we know each other? Where is the contact? Where
Well, you say it. I wanna know how you say it.
oh, how I say it. Okay.
Okay, and then I'll tell you what I think.
I would say, everyone, this is Jeannie. She is a de facto aunt. She is a great friend of my parents. And I would say that my mom leaned on her. She always puts this, when I really didn't know what to do, I would call Jeannie, and Jeannie would have the information and the insight to whether it be a just do it or to prioritize things in one way or another. And I think that was really inspiring to me. And I've always loved our time together, whether I was very little or really big as I am now. And in this phase of my life, it's been a lot. Your presence in my life has been immensely valuable in the sense of having you to lean on when my mind is racing in 10,000 different directions to help me get grounded and make the right decision as a mentor in my life now. So I'm very blessed to have you in my life. And there are many, many, many more nice things that I can say, but I would say that's the surface level gist of it, if you will.
So I always think about how, how I learned about your, coming into the world or your potential to come into the world. And it
Okay.
kinda exemplifies the life that we all lived at that point. So I have children. My kids are a little bit older than Patrick and Michael.
Hmm.
And, your mom and they were my son was little, but they were playing roller hockey in the street. I have a whole bunch of kids playing roller hockey in the street. I lived on a dead end street, so it was great for them to do. And your mom came over, and she came over because she was so excited because she was going to have you. And
Mm.
it meant so much to her. Like it was something she wanted for such a long time. And to know that she was going to have a child. We didn't know it was going to be you yet, Patrick, but we knew it was coming. And we sat there and we celebrated and we were so excited. And then your mom went to leave, and I'm in the kitchen. I'm going in the kitchen to put a baked ziti in the oven because I'm going to feed all these kids,
The animals.
all these animals who are like, I guess, right, because you're 30, right? So, and
Yeah.
Sean will be 40. So he was nine and a half, about that age.
Hmm.
And my idiot son decides that as your mom is pulling out of the driveway, that it would be a really good idea to skitch on the back of her minivan. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, he hooks himself and grabs onto the back of the minivan on rollerblades and lets her drive away. And your mom drives, she has no idea. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on. And being a 9-year-old boy, he went, I guess, halfway down the block, and your mom started to pick up speed, and he let go. Now, in his infinite 9-year-old wisdom, he was going to stop dead. But the force of gravity, and clearly he was not listening in science, did not let him know that he was going to keep going, and he smashed his head on the ground.
Oh
And
my
your
God.
mom kept going. And another friend was coming down the block, my friend Mike, whose son was there. He grabbed Sean. Sean's head looked like, the cartoon pictures when they go whomp,
Oh
like
my
really big,
goodness. Yeah.
flying out. And your mom somehow caught this, saw
Uh-huh.
something, but didn't know what she saw. And she turned her, and they're screaming at me, and I'm running out the door, and I see your mother coming. And there is no way I am letting her see any of this or know any of this. And is it okay? And I'm like, go home, go home, go home, get out. Because all I could think of is this poor woman is just come here to tell me that she's having this child and how wonderful this is going to be. And I'm going to freak her out
And
My
this is what the outcome is going to turn
this is what the outcome's going to
into.
be. And he was on your car, and it was so that was my introduction to Patrick McEnaney Jr. is going to join my life.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. Sean wound up in the emergency room. We had the whole, like, it was a whole thing.
Oh my goodness. Sean was sketching on the car. That's,
Kitchen
I don't know if I've ever heard that story.
on your mother's car, of all cars, on the day she comes to tell me how excited she is and how she's going to do this and what's going to happen. And there you go.
That's amazing.
So I should have known you were going to cause me all kinds of drama in my.
What other kinds of trouble have I caused you?
Oh,
That.
no, trouble. No, this is the other really good story. I still tell this story. In fact, I told this story 2 days ago to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So you were a young man, um, probably a teenager, maybe 12, 13, I don't remember.
Okay.
And your mom and dad invited us over for dinner. And so, oh, I know when I told the story because my grandson was getting into trouble the other day for being a smartass. So I told him the story. And so mom and dad made dinner for my husband and I, and the four of us are sitting at the table and we're having this wonderful dinner. And you and your brother are sitting in the living room watching some sporting event. I don't remember what it was. And as we finish dinner, your dad says, "Boys, come clear the table." And nobody moves very quickly, as is known for young boys. And dad says, "Boys, come clear the table." And you get up and you stupid idiot say, "This is crap. I didn't eat this food." And your father looks at me and says, "Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "Nope, didn't hear a thing.
Nothing.
I didn't hear nothing. I didn't hear nothing." And he promptly told your brother to go sit down and relax. And he made you do everything.
The walk of
And
shame.
it was, I have never forgotten that because that was one of the best examples of parenting that I had ever seen. There
Mm.
was no argument. There was no discussion. There was, "This is my house. I've told you to do something. You will do it." And when you're a young teenager, that's what's supposed to happen. And you, as much as you were a little smart ass, promptly stopped and cleaned everything up.
My dad always did a very good job of that, of accountability. And like
Yep.
right there, like, all right, you want to give shit? Mike, sit down. Well, I
Well,
had help. What do you mean?
I didn't have to do all this.
It's like shit. I stepped in shit. I stepped in double shit.
Right. And he was
Oh,
teaching you, he taught you a very important lesson right then. It was really hysterical. And I cannot tell you how many times I've used that story over my life because I just think that especially when you go through that stage of your life where you're raising children and then you get to be that the child gets to be that age where there's this constant a- push and pull and it's
friction.
yeah, it has to happen.
Mhm.
And so there's, at that time you were at the stage where your dad was the one who got to say, "No, you're going to do it all now." And you learn from that and then the dynamic shift. So I think again that's another taking it back to where we started. Like that's all the stages of life.
Mm.
Stages of life because you come in and out of things and you're at one point in your life and then 5 years later it could be something completely different. It doesn't mean any of that in the past was bad
Mhm.
because everything is the foundation upon which makes you who you are today.
Mm.
Right? So you wouldn't be who you were you wouldn't be who you are today if your father hadn't made you clean that table.
You're 100% right. You're
Right.
100% right. And how do you know when it's time to change? When those times are changing, how do you know when that shift is appropriate?
I don't think you know. I
Mm.
don't honestly, I don't think you know. I think you just kinda have to stay open to what's happening
Mhm.
and move with it. I think that as long as you move with what's happening and you get up every day and say, "I'm gonna be happy," then your change will happen
Mhm.
because you'll figure it out. Like it's when you are the worst times in my life, I think, were when I fought change.
Mm.
And I was so worried about what was on the other side that the stress level was crazy. Stress level was crazy. And
Tell me,
now,
tell me about one of those times.
oh my God. You know, I had to make decisions on even practicing I can go way back when I was going to go back when I had my kids, I was in law school. And then I was working and, do I continue in my career? Do I walk away from it? Do I stay home? What do I do in my life? The stress of how to make that decision. Am I making the right decision? Oh, I second guess that 9,000 times in my life. Did I make the right decision? Should I have been a stay-at-home mom? Would that have been better for my kids if I was a stay-at-home mom than
Mm,
being who I was? Um, and I worried about it all the time. Still worry about it.
mhm.
And I remember asking the boys about it once and saying, I'm really sorry. Like I wasn't there making chocolate chip cookies for you when you got home from school, that kind of thing. I was running around working, and and their answer to me was, "Oh my God, thank God you were not. You would have made us insane." Like it was better that you were gone because you came home like a force of nature. And if we had to have that force of nature all the time, we would have lost our mind. I never thought about it from that perspective.
Mm.
Oh, is that your pussycat back there? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Oh no, what you doing?
Uh, but I think that, that was a very stressful time. All of those years were very stressful. Was I missing things? Should I be moving into a different direction? Then when I bought into the second business, am I doing the right thing? You second guess yourself, and you just always think, oh, probably something better that I should do. But then you kind of just have to accept it and say, now it's time I've accepted this. This is where I am. How do I move to the next step? And I also think that it takes a long time to figure that out. I think people your age are a little bit better at it
Mm.
than we are. And you should thank us for that,
Right.
because you are only better at that because we struggled through it. And we kind of showed you how to do things a little bit better, and now you're trying to do them differently. I think people your age are more, even my own children, are more cognizant of a work-life balance,
Mhm.
saying no. I lived in a time where that was not really an option. And so in order to have the family life that I wanted, it meant that I had to work constantly at all hours of the day and night, so that during those hours when I could be with my family, I could be with my family. But I would, work all night. I would stay up working through files and figuring out litigation plans all night long so that I could go to the T-ball game in the morning, because that was more important. I think people now are saying, no, 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 we're not going to do all of that extra work because it exhausts us.
Mm.
And that's good. I also then also worry that, again, I don't know why I worry, because not my worry. Okay, well, how are you gonna make ends meet? How are you gonna do all those other things? But maybe it's just not as important.
Mm.
It's not as important. I can't answer that for anybody because everybody has to make their own decision on
Mm.
what that is. But I think those are the stressors in your life that are most difficult to get past.
Mhm.
Um, because you just don't, you're always afraid that you're not making the right decision. There was a guy I met years ago. He was a Russian, and he was a true Russian guy, And he said to me, I have no regrets for anything. I make a decision and I move forward. And sometimes it's the wrong decision, but it was the decision I made.
Mm.
So I just get to the point, say, okay, well, that was not the best decision. What do I do? What's my next decision to counteract that? And never going backwards to say, maybe I should have done something differently, because you shouldn't have. You're
Mm.
in that place because you're supposed to be in that place. And I believe that. I do. I really do believe that.
Oh. And when you're at that decision point, that fork in the road, because that day comes that you gotta pick up the phone and call on Friday when that decision point comes. how do you determine? How did you previously and how do you now?
How I did it previously, I probably weighed pros and cons. It was analysis paralysis.
Hmm.
So it was a constant second guessing, constant thinking. It was my eyes were twitching and I wasn't sleeping, and then eventually I would just do something. Now I think I am more, my faith is much stronger now.
Hmm.
It's a different faith than, not different faith, meaning I'm not still Catholic, I'm still Catholic, but I was a cradle Catholic who, which means that you're a cradle Catholic. You were born Catholic. So, well, that's what it's called. We were
Okay.
born
Yeah, I was gonna
Catholic.
ask, what is that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we were born Catholic, so we're Catholic, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
were born Jewish, you would have been Jewish. Like we're cradles. Like this is what
Hmm.
happened to us. We went to your baptism, Patrick, and we moved on from there. Like that's what
I
happened.
didn't
We
exactly have
didn't
an
have a choice.
RSVP to that baptism.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You didn't have a choice in that. You made your first Holy Communion because that's what you were supposed to do.
Mhm.
We did all those things, and it's funny because that's what we are. And we didn't really learn much about it. I have spent more time in the last 10 to 15 years learning more about it and
Mhm.
understanding why I'm doing it and understanding that I do have a lot of faith. So now I am more prone to sitting on the beach and having a conversation with God and thinking about it. And then whatever comes into my head seems to be where I head.
Wow.
So, they say you pray, discern, and don't regret. So you think about it, you pray about it, you discern an answer, and then you just move forward because that's
Pray,
where you're supposed to be. It's a much easier process. It's a little less stressful because I feel like I'm putting in someone else's hands.
pray, discern, and don't stress.
Yep. Yeah. No regret. No regret. Don't stress. Just go. And then just move forward on it. So it's funny so as I'm learning all of that, it's interesting. And we none of us knew that. You didn't know that. You still, if I asked you half the things, if I asked you like to talk to me about Bible stories, you'd pull up all the same ones we all know, right? But you don't, but that's it. That's all you know.
Hmm.
And you're learning a little bit more. My daughter-in-law is actually going through the RCIA program now to become Catholic
Okay.
because she was not baptized as a child, and my son is Catholic, and their kids are baptized, so she wants to be that. So it's kind of funny because she comes home and she asks Stephen questions, and he's like, "Yep, no idea." And this is, the Holy Family, modern day, the
Catholic
kids
cradle. Yeah.
at the cradle, and knows nothing. So we now call, we have a very close friend, Sister Nadine. She was the principal at Holy Family where they went to school, and she's 87 years old. She's a pissa.
Wow.
And so he calls her now. He's like, none, tell her. tell her
Tell
what,
her. Tell
tell her
her.
what I'm supposed to know. But
Hmm.
it's being open to those changes in life that I think allow you to make the change, and just being, thinking about it and thinking you pray. For me, praying. For other people, it's not that. For other people, it's, I don't know, sitting on the beach, not praying, just thinking, and then walking away and making a decision. I don't know. What's your process?
I call Jeannie.
I,
I call you. I call my parents. I make a lot of calls, and I reach out to people that are a lot smarter than me, that have been down these rocky roads, if you
and
will.
we're not smarter. We just have more wisdom. Honestly, we have more wisdom.
Been down the road. Been
Been
down
down the
the
road,
road.
right? Right.
Yeah. And why am I going to try to traverse these plains without a roadmap if I can call somebody who has the roadmap, who has made hard decisions? And I mean, this was something very similar yesterday. I was, deciphering on a proposal to a client, and I reached out to a business mentor and an old employer of mine who's a CEO. These people are both super successful. And I sent them both the proposal and say, hey, listen, what do you guys think? I'm super interested in, what do you think here? What's your feedback here? And they both took, oh, give me a text anytime you can text me. Both those people call me like this, and their time is extremely valuable. And I found, just by reaching out and looking for support and help, people are willing and want to help. And I found that through
Mhm.
helping other individuals. And I'm sure as a lawyer, your time and insight was extremely valuable. You can charge by the hour, by the minute, by the half hour, right?
Right. Yep.
So, I
By
mean,
the minute.
I am blessed enough to be able to have that number and to reach out, and it would be a I would be doing a disservice to myself, to my parents, all everybody that came before me that established that network, that helped build this person I am, if I wasn't reaching out to those lifelines, so to say, and trying to do it on my own. And then even after all of that, even after everyone says take the roofing job, even after logically it all makes sense, I still need to I strongly lean on my faith as well, in the sense of, all right, what feels right here?
Mhm.
I would say in that on my intuition of, all right, where does my gut feel? Can I do this? Can I actually make this call and accept this job? Because if I can't, then I just can't. And I know 3 months down the road, I'm going to be carrying that weight and living with that regret. And then I'm going to have to make a poor decision and you know, uh, cut a relationship off or make inopportune move because I didn't listen to my gut initially.
And I think that you do that very well. And I think that is something that many people don't know or don't understand. And that is that when you talk to everybody else, when you talk to me, right, I have a different agenda. And I've had this conversation with you before because you'll call me about something and I'll go, all right, but just remember, I am, and fill in the blank because it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about business issues, I'm like, I am a CEO. I ran a business. I
Mhm,
am a partner in a law firm. I am a mother. And, so therefore, my responses to you are not tainted, but colored
mm,
by my life experiences. They're not yours.
mhm, mhm,
And so and that's why it's good to talk to different people
mhm,
because everybody brings their own life experiences into what they're telling you. And
mm,
it's your ability to parse out the little nuggets in those conversations and then apply them to what's happening in your life.
mm,
And before that, people listened to they just did what other people told them to do. So if I were the person that you were most reliant on, then if I said do this, you would do it because, oh, Jeannie said it, but that shouldn't be the case. And listen, you and I both know we've had many conversations where at the end of the day, you didn't do what I thought was the most logical thing to do, right? But that's fine. And
mhm.
what do I say to you when you call me and you tell me that? I go, okay, are you happy? Are you fine with what you did? Then because I don't want to hear crap 6 months from now when you're like, but it's okay. That's okay. Like that's the way it should be. We all lived too much years ago in just trying to do what everybody else wanted them to do
Mm,
and not really figuring out who we were, which is why people were so unhappy because they spent years in relationships, in careers, in or not having hobbies, not having lives, not fulfilling themselves because somebody told them this is what you had to do. Like me, when I worked like a crazy lunatic and had, then did all these things with my kids. There was not a moment in time for me. This is a good example. So my niece-in-law, and I don't know if my godson will listen to this, but Matthew, listen to this because you're the husband. So Brenda went, they have 3 kids. He's in the Marine Corps. He
mhm,
travels a lot for the Marine Corps, obviously.
mhm,
He's off, he gets deployed, he's off on position. She's home with the 3 kids who are now teenagers, which means I love them dearly, but they're all pains in the butt. Um, and she has no time for herself. She works, she does all this. She went away. She left on Saturday. She went to Virginia Beach by herself, right? And so she's in Virginia. So I called her yesterday and she said, well, I'm ready to go home. I go, oh, no, you're not. You were staying until Thursday. And why are you going home? And as we talked about it, she started thinking about the million things that had to be done at home. Well, they're still going to be there when you get home on Thursday.
yeah.
Doesn't matter. They're all still going to be there. You get an opportunity now to just explore time by yourself.
Mhm.
Go to the beach, go walk around a museum, go read a book, go do whatever it is that you want to do. And so we talked for like 45 minutes. She's like, I'm not going home. I said, okay, good. Like, just take that time. But she laughed at me. She goes, would you have ever done that back then? I go, of course not. Not a like, I'll perfectly honest. The thought of going away for 5 days by myself when I had teenagers and a job and a husband never would have happened. Would that have made me a better person? Probably.
Wow. That's I just got finished talking about this with my client, who is a luxury travel agent. So when she goes on vacation, she needs to dial into vacation mode. She doesn't need to be walking through the resort. Who would really like this? Let me ask questions about the amenities. Let me do this. She needs to turn her brain onto vacation mode. And we were talking about the differences, and I feel in the same boat of, well, I'm building a business. I'm very busy throughout the week now, and there were weeks when I was calling you and praying to be busy, and now I feel a
Right.
little like I want to go skiing. I want to take some time to myself. But what if I come back and no one's calling me, and I'm nervous about, checking out to check back in, and so on and so forth. But that's kind of I'm so happy that this conversation topic came up, because now I have to go skiing. I have to do this trip.
Maybe this is why this conversation was supposed to come up.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I do believe that, like, maybe that's why this conversation was supposed to come up because, yeah, you have to think about that, and I wish I had done those things.
Mm,
I don't regret that I didn't. Again, I don't regret anything that happened in my life. I just think maybe if I were wiser back then, I might have done things a little bit differently, and it may have put me in a different place right now. On the other hand, I'm in a great place. I
mm.
love my life. I love what I do, and so I dealt with all that back then, and it put me in a great place right now. Maybe I could have been in that place sooner. I have no idea. And again, won't worry about that. But you can actually now pray, listen to that wisdom of other people talking about taking that time for yourself, self-care.
So tell us a little bit about the place that you're in now, and some of the things that you did to get there. And do you believe doing them, as you said, like slowing down and would help you to speed up
Yes.
if you were to
So,
do it over again, essentially?
um, I am always going to be a type A personality. I am always going to be a high energy personality until I can't be a high energy personality. So, the thought of not being engaged. People used to say, "Oh, well, are you just so busy because like it's not a good thing to be so busy?" But I respectfully disagree. I think it's perfectly fine to be really busy if you are that personality. I am that personality. So I went from, having a full-time law practice, which I loved. I was very blessed. I wound up in this very little niche field, and I wound up in this field because I had a child in law school. So when I got out of law school, I couldn't take a job. I had offers at big firms, but I wanted to go home at night. I wanted a job that allowed me a little bit more freedom than what a big law firm would be. Big law firm, you're working 80, 90 hours a week, you're never home. So
Wow.
I wound up like turning those jobs down and being scared to death because I didn't have a job getting out of law school. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And then I had an interview with this little firm in New York, and it was a trucking firm.
Mhm.
Who that? I didn't know what that was all. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about it. I think it's one question on the bar exam. And it was back in the bar exam is what you take to become a lawyer. And it was a case like related to like a wagon, like it wasn't even motor vehicles. Wound up in this little firm, and but it allowed me to have a life. And ultimately, years go on, I become a partner. I become a national expert in the field, which I think is hysterical because I'm speaking all over the country, and I'm handling cases all over the country, and people are relying on my expertise, which cracks me up all the time, I have to say, because I still thought of myself as this little girl from Brooklyn. So the fact that I would command that respect from people was pretty awesome. So I love that. And then some of the partners in my firm owned a business. They were the sons of the original owners, and they owned this business. And so we were kind of in the same space. So I knew everything about the business and what they did. And at one point, the partner who ran that business came down and said, I really want to retire. And the only person I think could take my place is you. And so they asked me if I wanted to buy in. And this was way, way, way back when. Sean was not even in high school yet. And that was the reason why I decided to do it, was because I could spend, oh my goodness, $12,000, and which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
And I could buy into this business, and maybe it would generate enough income so that I could pay for high school,
Mm,
Catholic high school, and college, and not eat into our savings. So that's
mm.
what I did.
It's a big
Ran
risk.
both of those. Right, but that was so scary. And ultimately, I continued to practice for 30 years. And I eventually retired from the practice in New York because the business was getting so big that I had to really pay attention to it. And we turned this business into the national standard for trucking, evaluation of trucking operations. That's the easy. I'm not going to go into all of what it
Okay.
was. We became the national standard. So everybody to this day says, oh, what does CAB say about this company? What does Central Analysis Bureau say about who these people are? Do we want to insure them? Do we want to get involved in them? And that was awesome. But then I was sitting in my house one day during COVID, and at 7 o'clock at night, because we were all working remotely, I answered the phone, and it was this guy. Didn't know him from Adam. And he said, hi, my name is Robert Lake, and I am I think he was the head of acquisitions at this very large corporation. And he said, we would like to talk to you about buying you. And I was like, oh, okay, let's have a conversation. What
Let's
the heck?
talk. Yeah.
Huh. Was never planning it, but that came to me because that was my way of getting an exit strategy.
Mm,
Allowed me to figure out how to leave that company in a place which I thought would be a good place for it to be. So I could figure out what else I wanted to do.
mm,
And I needed that because I couldn't let go until I couldn't let go to do the things I really wanted to do until that happened. So that was fortuitous. That happened at why did I answer the phone at 7 o'clock at night? Well, first of all, because I'm a lunatic and I would answer the phone at 7, even though it was a business phone. Um, but it allowed me to then turn my whole life into where I really wanted it to be, which was all of my nonprofit work. I had started doing it,
mm,
um, but now it's my whole life. And if the world would spend 10% of their time investing, and I don't mean just money, because there's time, treasure, and talent. Those are the three things you
mm,
can give to a nonprofit: your time, your talent, if you have a skill, and your treasure, if you have the ability to make donations to them from a monetary perspective. So
mm.
that's what they call it, the three T's, or it's wealth, wisdom, and work. So whether you like T or W, depends on
Okay. Okay.
the acronym that you like.
Uh-huh.
And so I started getting involved in them while I was working, so that for me, my transition was very easy. But now I just keep adding more nonprofits. You and I spoke last week because I've been on the board at the Food Bank of Monmouth and Ocean County.
Mhm.
Food insecurity in our country is really a big deal. It's a big passion of mine. It was always a passion of mine, even in my field of trucking, because you would be amazed that I had a truckload of bananas one time flip over in Florida.
Mhm.
And I get that, if I'm going to buy a truckload of bananas and they just fell over, I'm not paying top quality for them, top price for them, because they're bruised. So the company that dropped them had to pay for them. They had to pay $35,000 for the bananas, to the company that was buying them, but they were going to dispose of them. And I'm like, you're going to throw away $35,000 worth of bananas? No, no, no. We have to figure this out. And so we found a local nonprofit, and they came and took 35,000 pounds of bananas. And so they got to use that food to help families in need in Florida. I'm sure they made a lot of banana bread that week. Um, but it was
But you
things like
weren't
that.
involved in those things. That's something you chose to get involved in
That
because
was something
you
I chose to get
morally
involved in,
felt
right, but because of
obligated.
my skill set, it gave
Mm,
me that skill set. So, and then I got involved at Fulfill up here, and, I got on the board, and they put me in charge of governance, because that's what you would put me in charge of. So, so they laugh now. The board chair says, somebody said, "How'd you become board chair?" And she said, "I made the mistake of answering the phone when Miss Gardner called me, because she just talks to you until you say yes. And you don't even know it. So now I'm the board chair because Jeannie said, this is what you have to do. So it was things like that. I love my nonprofit. So I am on the board of Fulfill. I am a court appointed special advocate for children in foster care. So one of the things I'm doing today when I leave is going up to visit one of my kids who's in foster care. I'm her advocate,
mm,
letting the court know what's going on, but just being, in the 5 years that she has been in the court system, I'm the only person that's been in her life for 5 years, because the caseworkers change and the judges change and the law guardians change and the therapists change and everybody changes, but I'm still there. So if I'm doing nothing other than she knows that no matter what happens, when she calls, I'm going to answer the phone.
mm,
So I do that. And then this afternoon I do respite care for a older couple that the wife has dementia, and this lets her husband get out for a couple of hours, go for a walk, go sit by the beach, maybe go to ShopRite, whatever he wants to do. He leaves for a couple of hours, and I sit with my friend and we talk. And sometimes we tell the same stories over and over again, but that's okay because they're fine. I listen to them. And then when I come home from that, then I have a meeting with Vincent's Legacy, which is an organization that I got involved with last year that collects gently used furniture and donates it to people and gives it to people in need.
mm,
Um, we only take things that people would put in their own house. So we don't want, because it's dignity. It's making sure you can change somebody's life just by giving them a kitchen table,
mm,
because now they have a place to eat. Now they have a home. Now they're part of the community. It's all those different things. And it really doesn't take a lot out of your life to give back. I want you now to tell the story that you told me about the center that you went to when they asked you to come in and speak.
oh yeah, that was
So tell that story. And that was just a random thing.
yeah, that was unbelievable. I went so this was kind of in the midst of my career changes and trying to find out what I wanted to do. Do I want to dive in the field of roofing? Do I want to go into social work? Do I want to go psychology before I go to school? Or do I stay with training? So those are the three routes I had at the moment. And in order to knock one out, I wanted to get involved with I happened to stumble upon a Salvation Army and went in and I was like, listen, I don't know if I'm going to invest the 50,000 or whatever it is to go to school to get my master's for this without knowing what it's going to look like on the other side. Am I going to be able to really stomach the uncomfortabilities of dealing with that essentially? And I think that I was going there and seeing Salvation Army was, I never knew what it was. I thought it was just a place you donate stuff to, or you go and buy, lightly used goods. But on the back end, what it really is a support and a rehab center for men. And it's the Salvation Army. It's very Christian based. And they asked me, I was like, well, I'm going to come in and just sit around and, sit in on some meetings. And sitting in on some meetings, I got to meet some of the guys that were in there in the program. They're either in there for their first week, they're in there for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. They get a bed, they get 3 square meals, and they get a job. So they're working 40 hours a week, and all of that is earned essentially. And when I was spending some time, they're like, well, would you want to educate or do something? I was like, I don't know. He's like, well, why don't you? It was one of the guys that was the therapist and one of the speakers. He's like, well, why don't you talk about something you know about? Well, could you talk about fitness? I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. So he's like, all right, come in on Friday and I'll have, the mandatory meeting and I'll come with you and do it. So he puts me in a room and he's like, all right, we're in the chapel, and he gives me a whiteboard, and he's like, do you know what you're going to talk about? I'm like, not really, but I have a gist of it. I didn't really prepare, but I just kind of went with it. And because I assumed that he would kind of be there to help and to guide the session, if you will. He puts me in the room, gives me a check-in list, and I start talking, and he walks out. I'm thinking, oh, he went to the bathroom. Keep talking, keep talking. He's not coming back. And it's just me with these men, these grown men who were, I mean, previously living on the street with an addiction problem. And now they're clean cut. They're wearing polos. They're sitting up in their chair. They're present in life. And when I was expressing, they have like a little gym, and I was talking about the foundations of strength and the foundations of mobility and things of that nature, to see these guys like inch up in their chair and ask questions and really be engaged was like, it was unbelievable for me. And to face that challenge on a Friday afternoon, a 30 or 29-year-old would much rather be at a happy hour as opposed to in that chapel. And in no world or way would I ever want to swap out those. And I'm, sitting here thinking about it and thinking about a lot of, what you're talking about, and really wanting to get back into that, and donating some time and donating some of the wisdom, and the time, because at this
I
point,
remember
the
you.
financial means, but if you remember a part that I'm leaving out.
I'm talent treasure, right? You have a talent.
Mhm.
And well, while you were talking about this, this was a thought that popped in my head. I remember you calling me that after I spoke to you beforehand, and you were a nervous wreck, because you were like, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm going to just go. You're fine, Patrick. Like, I know you're fine. Because I at that point I had more faith in you than you did,
Mhm. Mhm.
which is what it should be, because you should be a little nervous. As
Mhm.
much as I know what I'm doing, I'm still nervous when I get up to speak, because you want to do it right. You care.
Mm.
Um, and then I spoke to you afterwards, and you were on cloud nine.
Yeah.
And now that I think about this, isn't it similar to the endorphins that like when you do what you do now with the training, right?
Mhm.
When you go out, none of us ever want to get out the door, right? Nobody wants to go exercise, nobody wants to go do any of that. And then when you're done, you're like, wow, like you just feel amazing,
Mhm.
because the endorphins are released, but endorphins are released from physical exercise, but also from what you got out of that program.
Yeah.
You got as much as you gave.
You're 1,000,000% right. It's, to me, it comes down to a lot of like doing things that you don't want to do.
Right.
And the more you do that, that's why cold plunging and ice baths and cold showers
Yeah,
are,
a little too much for me, but sure.
but it's going through that like, oh, I don't want to effing do it, but I know it's going to be good for me, and doing it anyway, and coming out on the other side, as you said. Like, I've never thought about that on the macro level that we're now looking at it at, in the sense of, oh, well, if I'm going there and I'm donating my time to this organization, what's the ROI? Where am I making money? I'm not making money here, but
Right.
as you said, you get what you give. So if you're giving your energy and your passion, that's going to be multiplied, and you're going to be able to take that and derive it into your business, into whatever you're passionate
Mhm.
about, to your purpose. Wow.
Because you saw that day when you were there and you did that, that you 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 watched them move closer on the chair. You watched them inch forward. You said it yourself.
Yeah.
It became that was a trigger in your brain. That's something that you don't remember who they all are. You'd
Hmm.
probably walk past them, say, wouldn't think about them twice, but you remember them inching forward in the chair, because that was giving you the feedback that you needed to get to know that, wow, I'm making a difference here.
Mm.
I'm doing this. I'm making a difference. And that's how I feel every day. I'm making a difference. It may be, no matter how small it is, it's a difference. And we can't, what I think it's Sister Teresa, Saint Teresa, who says we can't do everything, but we can do something.
Hmm.
And that's all it has to be. I have to be happy with living my life in the in the best circumstances that I can. And if that means giving those little things back, those little areas that you just did to that Salvation Army, and maybe you do it once a year,
Mhm.
or once a quarter, if that's the only available time that you have. But it makes you a better person. It makes you more empathetic. It makes you see that there, but for the grace of God go I. Um there was a guy one time who came in to teach a class at Casa, and he walked in the door, Patrick, and he could have been you. He was probably your age too at this point. A nice, good-looking guy, could have been any one of my kids' friends, my kids. And he told his story about growing up in Seagirt, New Jersey, which is a very fairly wealthy area, one of 5 kids, great mom and dad. And his dad had a massive heart attack and died when they were teenagers, and changed his whole life because they lost this core. And he and his brother, who were twins, ultimately went down a really bad path.
Mm.
Both became drug addicts. Both were like living on the street, getting arrested. Like the family had kind of shut the doors on them because they had to for
Mhm.
tough love. And he had changed his whole life around. And now he was sitting here, but he was sitting here a completely different person than he had been at that crazy high school kid. And that's what he does for the rest of his life now. He gives back in that he doesn't make a ton of money. He makes a living, but he's not going to be a CEO somewhere. But he realized that that gave him the ability to give back and to be empathetic to people that he would have, or you would have, or I would have back in the day been like, oh, look at that druggie, or look at that, look at this, not realizing that everybody comes from something and everybody has a reason why they got to be where they are. And you shouldn't look down on them for that. You should see if there's a way that you can get some obstacles out of their way. And that's what I do. So if I
Mhm.
could do that every day, then and go to the beach with my dog, what more do I need in life?
Wow, that's so beautiful. And we were just talking last week about being purpose driven. And you're trying to decipher between different nonprofits. And I was
Yeah.
asking if it was more about the people that you work with, because you're not getting any income from this. And is it more about the people that you're working with to align with them, or is it more about aligning with the purpose of the nonprofit? And I think people, whether they're looking to apply for a nonprofit or they're looking to apply to a new career, a new field, um, I think this answer could apply dramatically in terms of
I think
resilience. So
I
please.
think when you start looking, it has to be the purpose. You have to so I'm in the process, as I you and I were talking about last week, of doing that, because I have been on the board at Fulfill for 9 years. And as the chair of governance, I created bylaws that make you get off the board after 9 years. So they've said, no, 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 we'll change the bylaws. I said, no, I did it for a purpose.
Mm,
And the purpose I did it for was to bring new voices to the table. So and new ideas. So it's time for me to go. But that means, well, okay, now what do I do? Because that's a gap in my life. And so I had to really sit. I talked to a friend who runs a nonprofit foundation in New Jersey, the Grunin Foundation, and said to Jeremy, what do I do? Where do I go? What do I look at? And he said, well, first thing you have to think about is what resonates most with you? What is something that you believe is a critical piece? Because there's nonprofits that do everything, and you can't do everything.
mhm.
So there are nonprofits that their it's amazing to me how many nonprofits there are, and what I've learned, that there's always somebody doing something. Maybe it's food, maybe it's water, maybe it's clothing, maybe it's, arts. I never thought about that. Like the Count Basie in Red Bank, Count Basie Theater, which we all go to up here, that's a nonprofit.
I didn't know that.
It's a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit, and the money at the Count Basie, I mean, obviously they spend a lot of money because they're bringing acts in, they're doing all that, but they're a nonprofit. Jeremy's the chair at the Basie, because they run all these arts programs, art and music programs for the community, for people in need, because you're taking somebody who may be living in a tough existence, and you're giving them art. and you're giving them music, and maybe that's going to change their life. So now that's not something that would necessarily resonate with me, first of all, because I'm not creative at all. So so I don't make that connection. But if you were, that would be an organization that you could devote your time to, and it would be awesome. So there's a million different things. Fish, and saving the animals, doing whatever. So I had to really think about that. And I realized that my main mission is to get obstacles out of the way of people, because there are things that happen in people's lives that they don't have the skill set to get around them, and they don't know, and they kind of get stopped and they get stuck because maybe they don't have someone to talk to. Maybe they just don't know about the available resources that can help them. They don't know. So that's what I want to do. So that means families. So, and I see that through CASA and through the food bank and all those. So then Jeremy gave me a list. His office vetted a list of nonprofits that they think I could provide value to. Because he did tell me, which made me really happy, that I bring a lot of value to the table, and he wanted to go to a place that it will do some good. Because it will satisfy me. I won't be frustrated that I'm not doing what I really want to do, and I'm really moving the mission forward. And then you have to go meet with the people. So I think that you have to figure out where you want to be. And then, yes, it's critical to feel that you can work within that community. I recognize that I am a big voice. I try sometimes to not be a big voice. It's very hard. Very hard.
You are who
Very
you are.
because I am who I am, right? So I'm a big voice, and I have an opinion about everything. And so it's really kind of funny because Jeremy and I have served on the board together, and they just keep laughing. They're like, thank God we had both of you at the same time, because you counteract each other, because I yell, he yells, I yell, he yells. And at the end of the day, we come to a consensus, but we make everybody else talk. And so I've learned to do that, to be a big voice, but try to listen. And so when I meet with people, I look to see, obviously, if they're already there, they presumably believe in the mission that I believe in. But I really look to see whether or not they will listen, and if they're open. And if they're not, then I realize that it's not going to be a place for me. I don't have to like you, and sometimes I don't, but I have to know that you'll listen to what I have to say, because I will listen to what you have to say, because we all get better by that.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And that's my story.
I have one final question. Do you have to run?
Yes.
Are you okay?
No, I do not have to run. I have to get the dog to the vet at 11, but I know you have to, narrow down these.
One final question.
Okay.
We started on this topic, and it's quite ironic that we did. When it's your 101st wake, and there are a line down the block, they can't find enough parking for the one for Jean Gardner's. Yeah. Funeral and wake and service. It's going to be an hour and 45 minutes. Hour and 55, excuse me. Okay. How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered for your time here? What do you want people to say?
I just want people to say I was a friend to them. I really do. That's what I want people to say. I was a friend. I was somebody who listened, and I was somebody who was there for them when they needed it. I don't need accolades for, oh, she did, 9,000 years of nonprofit work. I don't care about that. I don't need that. It's not what I'm worried about them saying, or not what I want them to say. I really want people to say, she was there. When I needed her, she was there. And I think if you can say that about yourself, then the rest of it has to follow, because you can't be there for others if you're not open to all those things. So I think, that I was a good mom. I'm a good Gigi. But you know what? I kind of know they're going to say that, because I will come back and haunt them if they don't. But I think even that, I think my family, I hope will say that no matter what happened in life, that mom was there. And then my friends and colleagues and the people I got, it's kind of funny. This is a little pat on the back story. So when I retired, there's an organization that I was part of, the Inland Marine Underwriters Association. It's a national organization it was very focused on my career, in what they did and my engagement with them. And the year I retired, I got a phone call from the president of the organization saying, "We'd like you to come back to the national meeting this year." And I was like, and they're like, we're paying for you to come because obviously everybody pays to go to those things. So they flew me into the national meeting and they gave me the Lifetime Achievement Award. And I got, so somebody I knew got up and gave a speech about me. And
Mm,
I was beside myself because
mm,
she talked a little bit about my work life and what I meant to the industry and to, everybody there, what they are. But then she talked about me, and she can give my eulogy. I'm good with that. Like it was like that's how I felt. Like she said, I walked around and I talked to people, and everybody had something to say about their interaction with her and how they called her every time they were confused about something, whether it was work related, business related. One guy said, "I hate yellow, but if Jeannie told me to wear yellow, I'd be in all yellow today," which is not necessarily a good thing. But I think if I can get that, then I was a life well lived.
Mm.
And I wanna have I wanna have a funeral and a wake like Greta did
Oh,
yesterday because it was awesome. It was a celebration of her life.
well, it speaks to the support. It speaks to the love that you exude every day. And I just consider myself very blessed to be one of the people that can say Jeannie's always been there.
Well,
Whenever
I'm
I've
happy
I've been the lifeline has been, hey, yeah, you've been on the other
uh,
end of that.
I'm sure there are times you didn't really wanna hear me because I, yelled at you, but that's okay. That's okay.
It's hard to
Um,
hear the truth, but I'm blessed to have a person in my life that is courageous enough to share that with me.
but remember, as I always tell you when we have these conversations, remember, I'm a mom. So
You come from
I
that
still have
perspective.
I come from that perspective, and I love your mom and dad, and I know what your family is, and I know that you have a fabulous support,
Mm.
and so I'm always gonna, they're always in the back of my head too, so
So it's a
it's
little
good because
biased, but
a
they're
little biased,
with the right
you know,
intention.
it's the right, and we all, none of us listen to our parents. It's like you kids, right? Everybody said we all laugh about this too. Your kid is in the house, you want to kill them because they don't do a damn thing, right? And then they go for a sleepover at somebody else's house, and that mother calls you and goes, "Patrick is so wonderful. He can stay here anytime. He cleaned up the dishes. He did this," and you're home going, "Who?
I need that
What
fucking
the hell
food.
was that?"
I need that
Right. Like, he
food.
doesn't do that to me. So it's that different perspective. So hearing
Mm,
from somebody who's not your mom, but is a mom makes a difference. And just like me, I listen to you when we have those conversations because you're not my kid,
mhm,
but
mhm.
you're my kid.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
all the same. So there you go. Here we are, Patrick. It's an hour and 10 minutes in, and I was like, what are we going to talk about?
Like that, like
Like
that.
that. It's over.
I'm so happy we covered that other story about that woman giving that speech because I remember that. I was like, wow, that was. I remember we had a personal conversation about that. That was so profound and how well she spoke about you.
But that's what you want, right? Because it wasn't about how many trials I won, how many, cases I handled. It wasn't about that. It was about my connection to people, and that's the most important thing.
Not about the wins and losses, but being there.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
Well, I think we can wrap on that note. Thank
I
you
think we
so
can.
much for your
Thank you.
time. Thank you for coming on the My Tribe podcast. It's been,
Though, I can't watch this until April 1st because I gave up all social media
I hear you.
for Lent. So this is going to be an issue because now I want to see this when it goes up, but I will wait until Easter Sunday and rise again.
Ah, she will rise again. It'll be on YouTube though. Does that count? Does that count?
Yes, I won't do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Nothing.
Well, maybe we'll have to postpone the release until then. Out of
Uh,
respect.
no. All right, you let me know. All right, honey. Have a wonderful day. It was
You
great
too.
talking to you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. It's an honor and pleasure. Bye.
Bye.